Hey everyone, Jamie here from technicalcafe.com. Welcome to your 7th HTML tutorial. In the last tutorial we learned how to add external hyperlinks to our web pages and websites. And by external hyperlink I mean a link that takes you from one website or web page to another. And you can also use them to take you from pages within a website. So an example of this would be taking you from your website to, let's say, google.com or yahoo.com, something like that. But in this tutorial I figured we're going to talk about another type of hyperlink, and those are internal hyperlinks, meaning a link that takes you from one section of your website to another, all while remaining on the same page. And you'll see these used a lot in websites like Wikipedia, which I'll show you in a second because I brought up an example. But I'll show you an example that I created and what we're going to be creating in this tutorial. So right here you can see that I created the menu composed of 5 sections, links to 5 sections, and down here are the 5 sections themselves. And when you click on one of these links, it'll actually bring you to the section. So for example, we just click section 1, section 2, it'll bring you to section 2, and if we click on section 3 it won't take us all the way there because there's not enough space. But if we did have a lot more space, you'd notice that it'll take us to section 3. So I also added the back to top link at the bottom just to show you that this can be used in reverse, kind of. Instead of going from the menu down, we can go down back to the menu. So that's how that works. And if you'll notice up here that when we click the back to top, we have our top name up here. So depending on what you click, it'll show up here. So let me just show you the Wikipedia example. We'll scroll back up here. You'll notice that we're at the beginning of the HTML Wikipedia article, and I chose the HTML article because this is what this tutorial is focusing on. So if we come on down here to our menu, and let's say we click on the Origins section, it'll take us right down here to the Origins where we can find the information specifically about the origins of HTML. And you'll notice up here that we have the Origins name similar to how we have it in our own example. So let's take a look at the code and see how this works. You'll notice right here, this is the code for this page right here, our internal hyperlinks page, and here's the menu. And as you'll notice right here in the actual sections that we're clicking on here, the links to the sections, you'll notice that we have an ahref tag, and these are referencing the names of the sections that I've created. And you can name the section name anything you want, as so long as you just remember that to have them equal depending on the a name and the href. So if we come on down here to our sections, you'll notice that we have a name, and this is basically just a way to name the section so we can link it from href, and then we can just reference the name. So this might sound confusing now, but once we get into it and start coding it, you'll notice that it's not that bad at all. So let's just clear our page here, and we'll begin to code our HTML. So set up our HTML document using HTML tags here. We'll include a header. And within that header, we're going to add our title. Let's add it like, yeah. And we'll call this internal hyperlinks. And now I'll add our body. Alright, let's save that out and take a look at it over here. And as you can see, it's empty. Let me just get rid of this, since that isn't important right now. It's empty, so let's begin coding. The first thing we're going to want to do is create a menu. And I'm just going to use bold for this, just to make it stand out a little bit. And when we refresh, you'll see our menu right here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our actual sections to the menu. And we're going to use 5 sections, section 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're just going to name them section 1 through 5, just for the simplicity of the tutorial here. So we'll add a line break to space it down, and we'll say section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, and section 5. And if we put some line breaks between these just to keep them from being right next to each other here. Alright, and we'll take a refresh here and take a look at what it sees. So we have menu and then our 5 sections here, and what we're going to want to do is create links, make these sections into hyperlinks that take you from these sections, these links, to the corresponding sections down here on the page. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the href tag for this, the ahref, and we're going to use the a name tag for down here to name the sections that we're referencing. So it might still sound a little confusing, but once we start coding it, you'll notice that it's pretty simple. You just got to remember that these are referencing the name. So just if you think of it like that, it's not too bad. So let's come in here and actually we're going to create our links here. So we'll say ahref equals, and I'm just going to call the section names that we're going to have down here section 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're just going to add those in now. So section 1, and I'm going to use the numerals instead of words just to make things a little simpler here. So if we just repeat this for all of these, equals section 2, and then we'll close our links. Otherwise, everything will be linked to section 2, and that's not something we want. So section 3, close that off. Come over here, section 4, come over here and close that off, and finally section 5, ahref equals section 5. And we'll close those off here, and we'll refresh. So as you can see, we have our 5 sections right here. And actually, one thing that I forgot to include in the tutorial is that if we're linking to an internal link, or a link that's within the page, we need to include a pound sign. Otherwise, it'll try to link you to jamie/desktop/section1. And when we click on it, it's not going to find the file. So it's important to have the hash sign or the pound sign right before the section in your code. Otherwise, it's going to try to link you to another page within your website. So we'll just go back in here and add that. So here we go. Alright, so here we go. Now that the links are working, so if we click on section 1, you'll notice that in our URL it's trying to take us to section 1, but section 1 hasn't actually been created yet, so nothing's going to happen. So let's come in here and make our sections. So I'm going to give it 5 spaces just to space things out so we can see how it works. And then I'm going to use a header 3 tag and call this sections and close off that header. So take a look over here on our page. You'll notice that we have our sections header, and now we're going to begin making our sections over here using the a name tags that are being referenced by the ahref tag. So let's come over here and we're going to add another 5 spaces. And now you can probably just copy and paste, but I figure I'll just type these out. So we're going to use our bold tag to make the section names, and we'll call this section 1, and then we're just going to copy and paste this. Change this to section 2, same thing, section 4, and finally we're going to do our section 5. We'll save that and come on over, and you can see that we have our 5 sections here. So let's just come in here, and I'm just going to add a line of text. We'll say this is a line of text, and we'll just copy and paste this just to add a couple more things to our page, make it look a little better, as well as add a couple more spaces, I guess we could say. Alright, so now if we refresh, forgot to do it for section 1. So if we come over here for section 1 and add that in, now we have our sections with our lines of text. So now let's link them up. So we have these already set to reference these sections over here. We just need to put the name on them. So for our sections down here, for section 1, we're going to put our a tag around the whole thing, including the bold, because we're linking it to right here. We want this to be the section that it goes to, this to be the area of the page that we are taken to. So if we go to A, we're going to name these now. We're not referencing anything like we are in these tags. We're just naming them, and the references go to the name. So basically we're going to say a name equals, and for section 1 what we're going to do is we're going to include this name right here without the hashtag. So a name equals section 1, and we'll close that off. So if we come over here and take a look and refresh, you'll notice that when we click on section 1, it'll take us right, it'll bring us right to the top, section 1, and that's what we're looking for. So we just need to do the same thing for the rest of the 5 sections here. So let's take a look here. We come on into our code, and we'll just go a name equals section 2, and then we're going to close that off here. Otherwise it'll basically say that everything is section 2. We're going to say this is section 3, a name equals section 3. Close that off. For section 4, same thing, a name equals section 4. And just remember that we don't include the pound sign or the hashtag, whatever you want to call it, because otherwise everything will be included in that, and we don't want that. So a name equals section 5. Alright, so now if we come over here and refresh, you'll notice that if we click on section 1, that'll take us to section 1, and you'll notice that the hashtag section 1 or the pound sign section 1 is included in the URL. And you'll notice that this also happens on Wikipedia. So if we click on the summary and specification versions, we'll also have that hashtag. So this right here is the ahref, and this right here probably has the the a name tag associated with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're just going to try out some more. Section 3, it won't take us all the way to section 3, and that's because we didn't include enough space between the sections for it to scroll that much. But if we did have enough space, it would work, provided that we included the same a name in ahref. So the important thing to remember in this tutorial is that these right here are using the ahref tag, and the ahref is referencing the name. So basically, we name what we want to be referenced, and then we just come in and use a hashtag or pound sign, whatever you want to call it, and include the name, and it'll bring us to that section. Alright, so you might have noticed that in the example that I began the tutorial with, we had a back to top, and instead of going from the top to the bottom, in this, like in the tutorial that we've learned here, we're going to go instead from bottom to top. And to create that, it's the same exact thing. We're going to create a name though, instead of an ahref, and we're going to call this top. And you can call it whatever you want, so long as you have the a name and ahref, so long as they're equal. So we've just surrounded our menu tags here, or our menu rather, our menu's title with the a tags, and we'll just come down here, add a couple spaces. We'll say 3, and then we're going to create a tag. We'll say back to top. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to add in our ahref to reference our title, or the top of the web page. Since this is the topmost thing on the web page, I decided to reference it using a name. We could reference anything up at the top if you want to, but we're just going to use this. So we're going to create our ahref equals, and since we called this top, we're going to use a pound sign, top, and then we're just going to close it off. So remember that this right here, the hypertext reference, is actually an internal link to the top of the page. So what we're going to do, and actually the top of the page is named top, because we named the menu, which is the topmost item on the page, top. So it'll take us from the back to top link all the way up to the top of the page. So let's just save this here. Oops, refresh rather. And if we come down, I didn't save this is why. If we come down here and we click on section 1, it'll take us to section 1. We scroll all the way down here, our back to top link will take us right back up to the top of the website. And you see these a lot in websites that have a lot of content on them, so you just to prevent users from having to scroll up and stuff like that. So basically you just got to remember that these are the references. Any link or hyperlink is actually a reference to something that's named on the page. So that's basically how this works. You can probably find some more tutorials on it on websites like tyzag.com, w3schools.com, and various other YouTube videos as well. But hopefully I didn't confuse you too much. Just feel free to practice and play around with it. The more you do it, the better you get, obviously. So feel free to do that. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, problems with this, just feel free to leave a comment below or use the contact page on technicalcafe.com. And also please feel free to follow Technical Cafe on Twitter at Technical Cafe. And you can follow me on Twitter if you're interested in what I'm up to at twitter.com/JamieMCG. And feel free to ask me questions there as well, stuff like that. And if you haven't seen any of the previous videos, some of the stuff like the hyperlinks we learned in those, so feel free to just go over there and take a look. Anyway, thank you for watching and have a great day.